Welcome, everyone. My name is Luis Antonio Pichardo, the founder and executive director of DSTL Arts and co-host of the Art Block podcast. Here again with my main man, my right arm in the arts world here, Mr. Abraham Jaramillo. Say what's up, Abraham.
Sup.
And today, for this month's episode of the Art Block podcast, we're joined by a very good friend of ours from definitely years now, in the arts world in LA. We're joined by Javier Hernandez, who is a cartoonist and arts educator who is most well known for his comic book character El Muerto, which is celebrating 25 years in print this year. Javier publishes his comics through his own imprint, Los Comics, and in 2007, El Muerto was adapted as a live-action film starring Wilmer Valderrama, Fez from that 70s show. And in 2011, Javier co-founded the Latino Comics Expo, which just happened this past month in September. And it's an annual event that spotlights Latino creatives in the comic book field. He's collaborated with DSTL Arts on several projects, including our Héroes de Los Angeles Creative Impact Anthology and also Comics que Curan, which was a mental health-focused comic book series. So welcome, Javier. It's a pleasure to be able to catch up with you and to see you doing well. I mean, 25 years, man, that's a really good long time for your comic to be in print.
Yeah, it's definitely a big chunk of my life too. So yeah, it's great to be talking to you guys. I mean, I just saw you guys last month at the Latino Comics Expo, so I'm so glad you guys came to set up there as exhibitors. But as usual, there's not a lot of time to talk at those places because you guys were busy. I was running around. But I think I'm glad we committed to get together and chill out right now. And I'll catch up with you guys and talk about art. Yeah, we got a lot of joint history, and then of course, all the stuff we do on our own.
Mm-hmm.
Since this links with one of the things that I wanted to talk about, we met at the expo, which is really fascinating to see all these Latino artists, right? And so to me, it's like, have you ever run into challenges in your either life or career being a Latino, since we're talking about these?
That particular question is interesting to me because, very early on in my career, 25 years we're talking about, maybe the first or second year, me and my friend Rafael Navarro were invited. Well, I don't remember the details. We were invited to, I think, I want to say the LA Times Book Festival, but it was some book fair festival. And me and him were there, and I forgot who was sponsoring us in their booth. It must have been 25 years. But anyway, so we're there. I think we're the only two comic book guys in that booth, and there might have been some, authors and stuff, novels and such. And this lady came up, like she had a cameraman with her, and she was asking us. She literally goes, "Hey, what do you guys do?" "Oh, we do comics, El Muerto, Latino, da da da." And then she goes, "Okay, well, I wanted to interview you guys." And we're like, "Okay, that's cool." And then she was kind of prepping us beforehand. She was like, "So what I want to find out is, like, what struggles do you guys have, particularly as Latinos in the comic book industry?" And then we both told her, we didn't plan this. We both had the same thought. I told her, because I was honest. I go, "Well, honestly, I haven't thought about that part. I've just had struggles as an indie artist, as an independent comic creator in the comic biz. I have the same problem." This was back then. "I have the same problems a white guy who's doing an independent self-published comic is having. We can't get space on the shelf. People don't, they look at it, they're not sure what it is, and is this thing going to be around later, blah, blah, blah." But she kept trying to zero in on that question. And I'm not bringing this up, I'm not criticizing your question, Abraham. It's just I remembered when she asked it. And I go, "No, I as a Latino, I don't think I've been discriminated against." I mean, if that's what you're trying to get at, I was telling her.
No,
because I go,
the whole thing is everybody has their own experiences, and we also sometimes hear the bigger picture of like how things are, right? But that doesn't mean it happens to everybody, right?
Yeah. And like I said, I don't think I was being naive even today. I mean, because I talked to a lot of independent comic book publishers, right? It doesn't matter if they're white or black or brown, whatever, man or woman, whatever. It's always the problems. And I never look at it is because it's, well, in my case, because I was Latino, Mexican American. Again, maybe I'm being naive. I'm sure some people just dismissed it right away when they see it. El Muerto. I don't know what that is. That's in Spanish, but they don't tell me, right? They don't protest me and tell me, oh, you can't do this. So I don't know. What I don't know, I don't know. Um, but to answer your question today, 25 years later, have I had any particular struggles? Yeah, being Mexican American, I on I don't think so. Like I said, either I'm naive, I'm blind to it, but it's nothing I've ever encountered anything overt. Um, but again, it's just the struggle, financing, and you guys are independent. And ask any independent musician. We all know
Mhm.
the guys who pile into the van on the weekend and go for a gig, come back home, got to go to work Monday. I mean, I think all of us indie artists have a lot of struggles. Trying to find the crowd, trying to get shelf space, trying to get into a bookstore, whatever. I have the opposite of struggle. I have a lot of pride, and I've seen so many great things. Me being a Latino, making a Latino character with other Latinos buying it, and just being into it and excited. I think you just said too, like, well, I didn't know so many Latinos when I saw them at the
Mhm.
expo making comics. Yeah, we hear that every year from the audience. So I'm glad that I can, through the expo, I can provide a platform for Latino voices, for comics, graphic novels, things like that. And then hearing, 25 years later, like I have people telling me like, wow, I met you when I was 14 years old at Wizard World LA. And when I saw your banner with your character, I was like, oh my God, a brown Latino character. There's, there's no characters like that in my comics.
Mhm.
So, and then now he's a good friend. His name's Gerardo. You guys may have seen him, either you guys or the fans watching at my table. Now he comes and helps me at my table, helps me set up, he helps me sell. But he's always saying, if 14-year-old me knew what was going to be happening in whatever 15 years later. So I have a lot of great experiences being a Latino creator in comics. I'm really glad to say.
I'm
You know,
glad that your Latino struggle didn't appear. It seems like it's more general struggle, and I like that
Yes,
that kind of unifies us as an artist, right? So we all understand the struggle, right? That's good.
oh yeah, yeah,
yeah, I think that it's really cool to hear that for you, it really has no, like, the struggle is not so much about, being a person of color, but it is more about being an artist, right? And those struggles, I think, are the most common struggles that people can really latch on to.
right,
Which kind of brings me to this question about, what does it mean to have, like in your case, being the co-founder of the Latino Comics Expo, what does it mean to have something that is specifically targeted for a particular demographic? What does it mean for you, and why go that route of calling it the Latino Comics Expo as opposed to, I don't know, the LA Comics Expo or something?
right. Really quick, I just want to say one last thing. We're talking about struggles being Latino. Remember, all of us here, and then anyone listening. I mean, we're in Los Angeles,
Mhm.
so we're in a very nurturing. I feel like this is Latino ground zero
Mhm.
in so many ways culturally, right? Outside of whatever Mexico or whatever actual country.
Mhm.
For United States, I mean, East Coast may oppose this, but LA is like Mexican American ground zero. So in a way, I'd be surprised if I encountered a lot of negative resistance. I'm sure I'm not going to mention the cities or the counties, but I'm sure I can go to certain places and I wouldn't be welcome maybe. But yeah, I've been very lucky. Like the audiences I go to any audience, but they happen to generally be very heavily Latino.
Mhm.
But my books are for everybody, my stories. Um, so yeah, maybe if we were in St. Louis and you're asking me if I had struggles, maybe there'd be more. So I'm not picking on St. Louis, but I'm just saying being in Los Angeles, I think is just naturally nurturing for Latinos. So anyway, in that regard, I'm just lucky I was born here in East LA. Um, yeah, why? So yeah, why Latino Comic Expo? So well, here's the story. So my co-founder Ricardo Padilla, he's from San Francisco. I'm from Los Angeles. I've known his family forever. His kids grew up again reading my comics. They're little kids now. They're One's a lawyer, one's a psychologist. I mean, all grown up and everything. It's crazy. I feel like everybody's uncle. We were we were we were in. I was at a show in San Francisco, and I stayed with him and his family. And then we're walking one day the streets of San Francisco, and then we stopped by in front of two big buildings. I don't know if I get in trouble for saying this, but and he looked at those two buildings. Check out those two buildings. Okay, they're literally side by side. Maybe 4 or 5 stories. They're both, being completed. And he goes, "Oh man!" I go, "What's wrong?" He said, "Well, see the one on the right here. That's going to be the new whatever Jewish American Museum, Cultural Museum. The one on the left was supposed to be the Mexican American or Latino, probably Mexican American Cultural Museum." Again, here's where I don't know if I get in trouble, but he told me, he's like, "Well, the financing fell apart on that. You know, that type of financing, like it's just the internal forces. So it's pretty bad." So then I think that the plug was pulled on it, at least at the time. So he was just really bummed out because he's a big patron of the arts, not just comics. Him and his wife have a nice little art collection. They buy local at a local shop and stuff. Anyway, he loves arts. He loves comics. And he was just bummed out because, we're not having this beautiful thing that we're supposed to have. And I was just sympathetic to him. I was like, well, I can't get involved with San Francisco politics, but I go, I can't do anything about that. I go, but maybe I literally made up the name right there on the street. I go, maybe we can just do our own Latino Comics Expo. He's like, "What's that?" I go, "It'll be a small little event, and we'll just gather Latino creators." Because by then, 2011, I was already publishing comics for what, I don't know, 5 years, 10 years. So I already knew I had a good Rolodex of Latino comic creators. So let's just put on a little show, a little comic convention. What the heck, right? No museum, but we'll do a Comic Con. That's what I know, comics. And I told him, it's funny. I go, "Well, look, we're in San Francisco here. I got to go home pretty soon. Why don't you try reaching? Let's start at the top. Go to the Cartoon Art Museum, right? They're a great institution up there in San Francisco. On the West Coast, it's the sole largest cartoon museum dedicated to comic strip. And we had done stuff with them just as, me as an artist. I go, start with them first. That's the best place I can think of in Frisco. And then they'll probably say no. I get it. They'll say no because who are we? And then you'll probably go to like an American Legion hall, real cheap hall somewhere, and do it for $50. So I went home, and then weeks or months later, might have been a couple of months, I don't know. He calls me, "Hey, Javi, they said yes." I'm like, "Who said yes?" Like, that's gone from my memory now. He's all, "Cartoon Art Museum. They said yes, they'll host us for the expo." I was almost that nervous when I'm talking to you right now. I was like, I remember like, oh my gosh, we got to do this now. So we did it. So it was born out of, wanting to do something in place of something that was supposed to happen for the Mexican community in San Francisco. Well, let's do it for the Latino community in comics. And it just felt right for me. It's just an extension of El Muerto. El Muerto's a Latino-inspired comic in '98. So, yeah, to me, it's logical when I do my own convention. Yeah, he probably is going to do something Latino-themed. So, and it's been great. Like I said earlier, people coming up to us telling us, "Oh, I had no idea," especially in the early years. "Oh, I had no idea there was so many Latinos making I didn't know that. I didn't know they were making." Yeah, that's why we're doing this. So, yeah, it's just an extension, I think, of just El Muerto, to be honest.
For people who is watching, that's a great tip that our guest just dropped. It's like, shoot high, have low expectations. So if it happens, woo! If it doesn't happen, you walk away, still cool, right?
Yeah.
And keep on going. I like that. Nice
I never
approach.
thought about that. Yeah. Yeah, no, that is a good tip. It's like, boom.
And I think that that's actually a great way to just kind of push people. You should have expectations, right? But also understand that like you aim for as high as you can aim, and if you don't end up in that particular level, like if you're still passionate enough, you will find a way. And I really appreciate that.
But it's also a mechanism to be prepared for failure and know that you can get up. That I think that's the most important thing, because I mean, Luis, and I'm pretty sure Javier, we have failed at things, and we still here, right?
Absolutely.
It makes the victories, sweeter, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I'm still standing, like the song says.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, I really appreciate the fact that you recognize that, like, growing up in LA and being part of the East LA community, that sort of level of nurture that existed in the community for your identity. I really appreciate that you recognize that, and that you feel like that's not like a hindrance to your
Oh
progression.
gosh, no, no. I mean, even before getting onto community at home, right? I mean, my parents are immigrants from Mexico. Actually, my dad was born in Redlands, but he spent so much his early years,
Mhm.
teenage years in Mexico. You guys will know, like, no, he's Mexicano.
Yeah.
Like, this guy's a Mexicano, not Mexican American. But anyway, then he met my mom in Mexico. They got married. They moved to East LA because he had family, and his family and sisters were in East LA. So they moved to East LA to just get started here in the US. And then started having, was it my brother, then my sister? And then I was born here in Whittier. But I mean, yeah, from day one, I've said this a million times. Here I am in the house. Um, you hear Vicente Fernandez, dad's playing Javier Solis, he's playing his mariachi music.
Mhm.
And then your older brother, he's playing the Beatles, the Doors, the Doobie Brothers. You know what I mean? Mom's making all the Mexican dishes that she learned,
Mhm.
but she's also making spaghetti, she's making chop suey. So yeah, I grew up in a was a bicultural home.
Mhm.
Because we're in America, and our parents had that. That's you know part of my dad too, because like he actually was born here. But it's like, well, let's do all the American customs. Christmas, Halloween. Let's get them their costumes. Let's do Valentine's Day at school and all that. But let's have our music on the weekends. We'd go visit my dad's family in East LA. So I remember all the East LA parties as a
Mhm.
kid. I
Yeah.
wasn't the one partying, but I saw the parents there with the uncles, right? The Uncle Pete, had this immaculate white T-shirts where he creases it here,
Mhm.
and then he's wearing those blue jeans cuffed on the bottom of boots. I mean, like, just central casting East LA, but it's so beautiful. And then East LA cousins, and then my mother's family, when they'd come visit from Mexico, they were very Mexican, very proper, right? One thing I always noticed as a kid, because I'm from LA, you wear shorts, you wear T-shirts, they're always dressed so formal. Like the young people, like long slacks, some nice shoes, and then always a button-up shirt, whether short sleeve or long sleeve. Whereas here at the home, we're wearing T-shirts and shorts all the time. So you're noticing as a kid, like, okay, there's East LA Mexicanos, and then there's Mexicanos,
Mhm.
and then what am I? I'm a little bit of both, right? And then whatever new stuff, you know,
Yeah.
whatever new stuff you bring into it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why I find um kind of aggressive, or even I don't like say ignorant, but ignorant when people has this notion of North America as a monoculture. And like, no, like it's so much different cultures even
Oh yeah,
entwined. We have
yeah,
so many like from different countries, and not even just that, just in that same household, there's a bunch of different cultures happening because the kids are into some things, the
right.
parents into some other things, and it makes it so rich, right? And that reminded me of the remember we did a work because we have work DSTL Arts with Javier. We have worked together for a couple projects, and one of them was illustrating the heroes of different people, especially from the LA area. But it became something bigger than that, and I remember that we have to illustrate their heroes, but in the
Yeah.
process, we also have to illustrate our heroes, right? Tell a story and illustrate it. So, can you tell us about the hero that you chose, Javier?
Yeah, that was a great project. Yeah, it's so interesting because the one lady I did it for, it was like a father or maybe a grandfather,
Mhm.
but she was giving me the history, and it's very personal. Nothing bad, but it's so beautiful. It was so personal, right? She loved this man so much, and she had these photographs. She cherished them because she probably didn't have too many of them, whatever. And you're like, wow, I'm allowed into this woman's beautiful private family memory. So yeah, it's a very big responsibility. So I illustrated the subject, but then yeah, Lewis goes, well, you guys do your own heroes too. And like, oh man, the sky's the limit there. Um, so to not make it too lofty, whatever, or and then something in my wheelbox. Okay, I'm gonna do Mil Máscaras, the Mexican mass wrestler, one of the trio, right? The Holy Three. They call it Santo, Blue Demon, and Mil Máscaras. Yeah, just what I wrote about. What I write. As a kid, I'd see him in the wrestling magazines. I don't think he ever showed up on the wrestling shows I used to watch on Channel 34 in Spanish on Wednesday night. Was it? It was just called Lucha Libre. Yeah, Lucha Libre de Campeones. That was Wednesday night from the Olympic Auditorium, and then on Saturday, the same venue, but it was different matches, and then the announcers were in English. But for me, what do they call it? Code switching. When I'm watching Wednesday night in Spanish or I'm watching Saturday morning in English, there's no, I don't realize, oh, it's different. It's just, oh no, it's just more wrestling, more wrestling. What's wrong with that? So yeah, I mean, Mascaras, what I always liked about him, particularly from just what I knew about him in the magazines back then, he's a man of a million masks. So every mask he has, it's the same design, but they'd be different colors. They'd have cheetah pattern, zebra pattern. So he had this very artistic flair about him that other wrestlers didn't. They had a cool suit, but they're just the one suit. And then he'd also come in sometimes with like Aztec wardrobe, headdress, a big beautiful cape. He'd come in with the mariachi charo. So he was very culturally very proud of his culture, which I guess rubs off on me as a kid, which I didn't think about until I wrote that essay. It's like, yeah, I didn't realize how much of a big impact he had, or he opened the door in that regard. So yeah, I was happy to finally let the world know my love for Mil Máscaras with the little illustration and then the little one page piece. That was great.
Yeah, that was a fun project because it was a great opportunity to see how people kind of align themselves with not just the history of their family, but individuals in their family. And
Mm.
sometimes it doesn't have to always be a person from your family, like in your case, Mil Máscaras,
Right.
or like
Right. Yeah.
the case of Abraham, where Abraham wrote about a friend who's an activist, and I thought that was
Right.
really cool.
Yeah. They were all over the gamut, the different levels, which is good.
Yeah.
I
And
like also how
mhm,
the Mil Máscaras ties in with, like, we're talking about variety, right? Like a different faces that we have, like you were saying, like I can listen in English, Spanish, kind of has
Right.
that variety. And like I think many artists have that thing that they're like each of like we get tired, we need something, we need something to some variety to things, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, and it makes me kind of wonder when I was reading and editing the work for that book. Um, for you, at what point did things like your fascination with wrestling and the musical influences that you talked about earlier, at what point did that become like, what, I want to do this as a career? What was that moment that you said, I want to be an artist?
So growing up as a kid, reading comics, there'd be a flyer in the back of the comics for this thing called the Joe Kubert School of Art, or no, I mean, School of Comics or something like that. Joe Kubert was a longtime DC comic book artist since the 50s, I think, really big 60s and 70s. And as a kid, I'm like hearing Whittier, like, oh, wow, that sounds cool. Then, like, New Jersey, oh, no, my parents are not going to let me go, they're not going to send me to New Jersey. They're not going to let me go to New Jersey.
Yeah.
I don't know if I can even get there. So that sounds so far. So that kind of quashed for a while, like, well, okay, comics is an East Coast thing, which historically it was, as far as like all the publishers are centered there and everything. And then I guess in my teen years, I'd be reading a lot about comic books, like history, which was great. And then I'm reading, like, you know what? A lot of the writers and artists, creators aren't treated very well. I mean, we're talking about the strike right now, the writers' Hollywood strike. I mean, similar issues, right? Not being paid enough, you're not owning your creations or participating in it.
Mhm.
So, at the same time, it's like, that's not a nice field to work in. Like, I like the comics and the artists and whatever. So I kind of flatlined on that as far as like wanting to do it. But at the same time, I did want to do it because I loved drawing at the time. I love comics. I love drawing my own comics. It's so when did I get, when did it switch on for me? I hate to admit it, later than most people. I mean, most probably people in their teens already know they want to do comics, like forever. But it's not till I thought I started learning about self-publishing. The Ninja Turtles, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, was already a huge success story by the time I was in the
Mm.
mid '90s when I was thinking about it. It was an independent black and white comic, which everyone knows how big that is now. Um, and then I had some friends, Rafael Navarro, some other friends doing comics, and I started seeing other Mexican American creators making their own comics. I read about it in Hispanic magazine.
Mhm.
Richard Dominguez, he was doing El Gato Negro, and he's from Dallas. And then I found out about a comic locally here in Los Angeles. Carlos Saldana was doing a book called Burrito. It's like this little anthropomorphic donkey character.
Mhm.
Um, and then Laura Molina, she was doing a book. She did a comic called Jaguar. So I'm starting to, again, going back to that Mexican American thread. I'm starting to see, okay, they did it.
Mhm.
These are just Mexican American self-publishing their own stories, culturally relevant stories. So by the '90s, I was like, okay, I want to make my own comic. Self-publishing is a thing in comics. There's ways to go about it. You can,
Mhm.
no guarantees, but it's been done before. So that's when I started coming up with ideas for, well, what am I going to do? And I knew I wanted to do a Mexican American character that, like, from the beginning, that was like, okay, whatever I do, it's going to be, whatever that meant at the time. It's going to be Mexican American themed or whatever, flavored, or whatever you want to call it. Which obviously eventually led to El Muerto's combination of Dia de los Muertos and Aztec mythology. I go, let me get two of the big cultural, touchstones and smash them together. Like,
Mhm.
is that Mexican enough for you? So it was like an up and down process for me, and then it kind of zeroed in the '90s.
Mm.
Like, damn, I got to do my own comic.
Interesting. Would you say that it was maybe more a realization that the technology was there for you, that it was more accessible at that point? Is that kind of what pushed you?
Yeah, it really helped. Yeah, technology. Um, just the fact that so many people were doing it. Like,
Mhm.
yeah, I would hold the books. I'm like, oh, this is a self-published comic. It looks like a regular comic, except mostly it's black and white sometimes, but it's still got the glossy cover. It still looks like a comic.
Mhm.
Yeah, the technology was there, but just the fact that people were doing it,
Yeah.
you know. So I know these people I just mentioned, Richard, Carlos, Laura. I still know them, even if, like, Laura quit doing comics years ago. Richard and Carlos are still doing them, which is awesome, right? They're like the old gray-haired veteranos now up on the hill. Then I realized, like, I'm a second or third wave. Me and my friends from the '90s, and now we're on wave 10 or 12 or something. It's so great. You know, in the early years of my doing comics, like, I could almost say I knew most of the Latino creators, whether they're in LA or I would know, like, oh, this guy's from New York. It was good and bad. It was good to keep tabs on them, but it's bad that there's so few. But now there's so many. I don't know, every time I'm online, I see this, oh, a third issue of this one person's comic. Oh, I didn't know about them, a Latino creator.
Yeah.
And that's how it should be, right? I mean, does a white author know every single white novelist? No, I don't think so. You shouldn't be able to see the field of all the
Mhm.
talent. There should be that many.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I think the idea in the technology of self-publishing has helped a lot into the variety of people coming in, because they used to be gatekeepers of who's
mhm,
allowed to be published, regardless of talent and so on. But
right.
there's so many people with dreams and they got left out because they couldn't publish. But now with self-publishing, we have those gates open, right? Success or not, at least as you have it out, right? And I think that's really important.
Yeah, and the biggest tool that I didn't really have, I won't call MySpace a tool back then, but I mean, now, man, people can just, I tell everybody, kids, whatever, you can put your comic online. You can draw your comic, either draw it on your phone, your tablet, draw it on paper and take a picture of it. But you guys can literally draw something and put it up the same second for
Mhm.
the world to, not the whole world's going to see it, but potentially it's out. We didn't have that. I didn't have that. You know what I mean? So, like, yeah, the technology question is even more relevant to today's uh, people want to create. There's no limits. You don't really have to spend a penny other than paying for your internet. but you just draw it at home or on the, like I said, on your phone, whatever, tablet. You put it up. You didn't have to print. Like I had to print. I had to drop $3,000 to print 2,000 copies of my early comics. That was just the going rate. There's a certain amount they had to print, so they had to be 2,000 copies. So that was $3,000. Or was it 2,000 and 3,000 copies? Something like. Either way, it's still a couple of thousand. So that was a gatekeeper because, like, yeah, if you can't come up with those $2,000, you're not going to publish the comic. At least on the the offset printing. You can always do like photocopy, Xerox, whatever. But now, yeah, technology. If you want to call the internet a gatekeeper, which most people have, not everybody has, but for the most part, I think most people have access to it. So yeah, there's no limits, which is great. The classes I've taught with you guys, these young people at Garden, I think. I mean, man, some of these kids are so advanced with their art and their storytelling and their thinking, and it's like, wow, they got the access to put it up. It's great.
Yeah, I think even though we do have more access, it's kind of a double-edged sword because you also in some ways have people who are like still pushing a single kind of narrative, like a single vision for what it means to be Latino. And
Oh yeah.
I don't know about you guys, but like, sometimes I struggle with the concept of even like Hispanic Heritage Month, and like sort of the simplification of what it means to be a Latino in the United States. So I feel like the openness of the internet and being able to tell different kinds of stories is great. But then you still have moments where like, a particular kind of like East LA story tends to get told, And I'm
Right.
curious to hear like what is your response to that? What is something that maybe I don't know, like if you could have words with the people in power, what would you want to say about the multiplicity of being Latino?
Yeah, well, we try to show that by example at our expo. Like, we have everything there as far as content: superhero comics, lucha libre, horror, autobio, political, LGBTQ, whatever type of story you want to tell, and whoever you are, we're trying to, it's a Latino Expo, so we're trying to get people of Latino descent to be there and showcase them. But yeah, you're right. It's a really wide. Boy, I mean, this is a whole conversation that can go off for hours. I mean, yeah, like what's Latino, and then even the term Latino, is it Latinx, Latin? I
Mhm,
remember years ago it was Latin with the ampersand A. I guess that was cute. Oh, it's an A Latina, but it's also got the O.
mhm, mhm,
Don't get cute with the visuals on this stuff. Just so I have particular opinions about all that stuff, which puts me on the outside sometimes. A lot. I mean, Latino, that's just the word it's been, and to me that means everything.
mhm,
But I don't want to. I'm not going to die on that hill, but I'm not going to argue it either. Um, so I would tell the powers that be, if whoever the hell thinks they're the power, whoever the hell thinks that they're the power, like good luck, dude. If you think you're in charge of something, but um, don't try to stamp it with one thing. I
mhm.
mean, I have this opinion in comics, like Latino comics. I mean, again, sometimes it gets me in trouble. It depends on the crowd I'm talking to. It's like, yeah, not every Latino story is going to be, well, okay, I'll just say right now, not every Latino story has to be Day of the Dead. Okay, I'll get that out of the way. Um, I'm one of the first, so no one else should follow now, but not every Latino story has to be about immigration. I mean, there's a lot of great graphic novels and comics I've seen about Latino immigration issues, I'm glad they're done. It's fine. But what I don't want people to think, like, when they look at my book, oh, it's not about immigration. Like, well, no, it's not. And their book isn't about an action adventure superhero steeped in Aztec mythology. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. So there should not be any one way, any one voice, any one point of view for Latino comics. I mean, Latino comics is just a broad term anyway. It's not.
Mhm.
It's not like, oh, a Latino comic is this, and then you give the synopsis. Like, no way. It's everything. It's everything. I mean, there's Latino creators who do books, and you look at the book itself, the characters. There's nothing quote unquote Latino about it, right? The characters, it might be a monster or something or an alien, so it has some weird name. It's okay. It's not a Mexican. It's not a Latin name. It's not a indigenous. Not every Latino creator has to delve into their cultural background either. That's
Mhm.
the other thing too, right? Um, Now on the opposite end of that, there's Latino creators, people of Latino descent that are, they may work for Marvel on Iron Man for 2 years, and that's fine. And there was nothing Latino about their output, but
Mhm.
that's fine too, right?
Mhm.
Like, is that a Latino comic? Now I sound like a gatekeeper. To me, Latino comic would at least mean it's kind of like culturally, in some ways, dealing with the person's cultural background. But again, that's not set in stone either. Yeah, it's a touchy issue. It's because it can morph one way or the other. You could piss some people off, which you're always going to. Which some years ago, I think what was it? You were having an event at the East LA Library, and I
Mhm.
think I was just there to support and listen to the folks. No, I think I was speaking actually. He had me visit the class, and as we're walking into the class, there was a gentleman outside. I think I'd put up a flyer, or I gave him a flyer for like, oh, Latino Comics Expo is coming next week. And he was like, Latino, that's Italian. That's not for Mexicans. That, by the way, that was new to me. I didn't realize that was a term for Italianos. I wasn't gonna sit there and argue with him.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's everyone's got different opinions and grew up with different terms, and yeah, it's changing all the time.
Yeah, that identity thing, and the label that, like, for me as a person who grew up in San Diego, my mom, she identifies as Chicana, but for me growing up with my dad being Mexican, and I mean Mexican as in like born in Mexico, born in
Right.
like, I couldn't identify as Chicano. Like there was just something that maybe some aspects of Chicano culture I could, but it wasn't like the only part of me. Uh,
Mm,
so I also struggled with that too, and wanting to find something that really made more sense for me as an individual. Uh,
right.
so yeah, I can definitely relate with that. And I
Years ago, I did an interview for somebody, and it might have been a written interview, and he asked me, um, the one question was just boom, like, "Oh, do you consider yourself Chicano?"
Mhm,
And I had to sit back and I think, like, wow, I never really thought about it. And ultimately, what I ended up writing, I told him, I go, actually, I don't. I'll tell you why. Out of respect to me, from just my point of view, Chicano always meant someone very politically,
mhm,
literally on the street, you know, striking or protesting or marching, right?
mhm,
Great causes. And that's to me like, okay, that's a Chicano movement, stuff
mhm,
like that. So I go, yeah, I told him, no, I guess I don't. I guess I didn't. Yeah, see, I'm answering. I'm even changing like the present tense, past tense, because at the time I told him no. And yet,
mhm,
people write about me. Oh, Chicano artist Javier Hernandez, Chicano superhero comic El Muerto.
mhm,
It's like, well, yeah, again, like you said, Lewis, like people have different terms, and maybe you don't think you're this, but other people, oh, he's Chicano, he's hardcore Chicano.
mhm,
So,
mhm.
so I've come to sometimes when I'm writing a bio thing, like, oh, Chicano artist.
Yeah.
So
Uh,
yeah, labels are so amorphous.
Mhm,
yeah, we have so many of those conversations with Luis about labels. I hate
Yeah.
labels and boxes. And one thing that I wish the culture, especially as consumers, could do is don't expect something before listen to it.
Mm,
Especially if I go and approach a book or a comic book, don't expect something already. Wait until
right.
the story takes you there, because otherwise you already have a notion of what it is. And so many people, especially for creators, I always tell them, like, do not already have an expectation of your character, what it should be. Make it something that's unique, right? Because we are not all cliche, right? So because I hate that it's always that kind of notion of a Chicano has to be a Frida Kahlo and has to
Right.
have this and that, and it becomes a generic term that fits a lot of things, yes, but it doesn't fit everyone in
Mm,
reality, because we all have different stories, different paths, right?
right.
And going just to try to flow with the conversation, like I know that El Muerto is such an interesting story in its own right, and I think death, it's the core of the whole story, right? Because it's kind of the what starts the whole thing, right? Like,
Yeah.
and I wanted to ask Javier, what does death, La Flaca, means to you?
So here's the funny or whatever. Like we all love Dia de los Muertos. We celebrate it. We understand it. It's a fun thing. It's dead man on your shoulder, man. Um, it's a celebration of the person's life. I hate one time I did an interview for the Leader Daily News, and the reporter, she goes, "Oh, this and that and that. Yeah, oh, Dia de los Muertos, the Mexican Halloween." I was like, no, why did you say that? And then worse, I don't want people to think I told her that. I didn't. It's not the. So I used to say it's not the Mexican Halloween. If you have to do that, to me, it's the Mexican Valentine's Day because it's about love.
Mhm.
It's about love, remembering, respecting those who passed on. But I have this really, my father passed away last June. Um, 95 years old. So he's in my life, my whole life. And he was dying. He was just getting sicker. So it wasn't unexpected. He died peacefully at home, thankfully. But I was thinking, like, in those moments, you're not really into, I don't want any other fun Dia de los Muertos stuff right now. Like, it's fun when you're not participating in it as a mourner, right? Because the skeletons are beautiful, the music, the displays, the color, you know. But yeah, you're asking me death. So death is strong. Death is a slap in the face, to someone you loved and known forever. And we've all had loss. I'm sure we've all lost different people in our lives, parents or friends, relatives, of course, yeah, and it's always a slap in the face, to me, like when you read it, oh man, like that person's gone. Yes, we remember them and we'll always have them, but I mean, they're gone. Like I got to get past that first part. They're really gone physically. They're gone. You're not going to talk to them. You may dream about them. You may pray for them. That's all fine. But you got to get over that first initial cold water or scalding hot water poured on you. It's gone. It hurts like ripping a band-aid off. It hurts like heck. It's ugly. It's terrible, But and then of course the memories come in, and then that's where I think this beautiful ceremony, this celebration of Dia de los Muertos. Yes, I do remember this person. I do want the picture up, and they did like this cerveza or this soda, and they like this pan dulce. And it is fun and beautiful, and you know what I mean. So yeah, the relationship to death is it's hot and cold. It's very real. Nothing frivolous about it when it happens that second. Um, but in general, you know, and then on the opposite end, I do have a macabre sense of humor, gallows humor. If you look at some of my comics, I mean that's probably a coping mechanism. But I'm attracted to that stuff. I'm attracted to horror right now. October horror movies. I mean, we all love horror movies, and there's plenty of explanations, psychological, why we like horror, which is an interesting conversation in itself. Um, but yeah, death is something to be. Um, well, I mean, I'll say it to be it's to be feared, but not only feared. It's also to be celebrated as a part of that life and death cycle. So yeah, it's very complex. And of course, leave it to the Mexicans, the Aztecs, to come up with this ceremony where we're dancing with death and such. Octavio Paz has this wonderful Labyrinth of Solitude poem about that, which was a big inspiration when I was coming up with El Muerto, reading his idea of the Mexican has a very unique, kind of goes to your question, Abraham. He has a very unique relationship to death. What does he say? Octavio says, we work hard, but we party hard. Like, wow, that's Mexican. Yeah, I like that. I work very hard, but we get to party, to be festive and loving. So yeah, it's a complicated relationship. It has to be respected, has to be feared, but also has to be lived with. Weird choice of words.
Yeah, I have a couple conversations with some of my friends and so on, and I think it always comes back to like this society in which we live in. We don't take death into account as much. We only take it when it's going to happen. We don't integrate it into the social network or the structure of everyday life. And if we did, like some other cultures, I think death shock that we're talking about
Right.
of fear of death will be lessened because we have it every day
No, right.
gone through the process of either pre-mourning, if you think about it, or knowing that that death is every day. It's like life, it's entwined with death.
Right.
And we already preparing also the systems of social, like, medical healthcare, like what you're gonna do with your body and all that stuff. I think all those things, if we have integrated since the day we are born, I think will help a lot with the shock of living it to the end of the story.
Right.
Should be like everyday story, right?
Well, I think that's why the idea of those muertos is very helpful, like especially the calacas from Jose Guadalupe Posada. These cute dancing, frivolous skeletons dancing and drinking and laughing. And it's like you're saying, like, oh, if I see that every day, it's taking a little bit of the sting of death off. I mean, I again, though, I gotta go back, and then my father passed away. All that was not on my mind. You know what I mean? But maybe like when I landed again. But yeah, I think just being aware that death is, it's not that it's like this black evil thing that comes out of the ground like in a movie and it takes you. It's everyone's gonna die. I mean, we're like a battery. We won't, got so many beats in us, and they're all different and different. We die for different reasons, different times. But yeah, it's like great psychological discussion, death across cultures and such.
Yeah. And I like that approach that people's taking. Like, I went to my friend's funeral and they basically didn't call it funeral, right? There's a celebration of life. That's what they went for. And it's more about like, let's just be sad about it or dress in black. Like, be colorful. They even invite us to dress as colorfully as
Right,
possible
right.
to change that. Like, so I think we have that. I don't know. The culture it's making death be the evil thing. I think we should take a little bit of that ancestral knowledge and use it more to like make it something other than the thing we fear into something that we kind of have it up like a celebration, right?
Right. Talking about death. So my nephew Christian, he died of gun violence. He was shot 2018. I think. He was only 27. And he worked at a tattoo shop, and then went to go talk to his friends there. And then at one point, I don't know if it was my sister, his mom, or somebody like, oh, we're gonna get he's gonna get his casket, and she wanted to get a white one so the friends could all draw on it, which I thought would be great for myself too. And they were like, oh yeah, that'd be great. We love him. He loved art. We're artists. We'll honor him that way. So she had the casket delivered to the tattoo shop. And see, now you're not thinking about it when you think of the idea, because it's a beautiful idea. But then the casket is sitting right there. I mean, it's empty, but it's sitting right there in the tattoo shop where he worked.
Mm.
And then we found out that his friends, they did not want to do it. They couldn't do it. They felt it was wrong. They felt, it's so interesting, and we didn't blame them.
Mhm.
Because yeah, well, that's not a good idea at the beginning. And like I said, I still would like that for mine, but I'm thinking, yeah, you know what? If that's my friend's casket, again, they're not in the casket, but is there being frivolous drawing on it? But not if it's their wishes. So I better tell my family, yes, it's going to be my wishes.
Mhm.
But yeah, it's interesting how things could change from, one day to now. Oh, death is right here in our room, in our tattoo shop, in a way. So yeah, but I didn't blame them. I didn't blame any of them for thinking that.
I think it goes with what we're talking about, like the Chicano. It also becomes the preconception of what's a casket.
Mhm.
Oh, it's something to mourn about, something to be respectful about.
Right.
But what if we take into something that celebrates the person? Like in Africa, they have this cultural thing where they have caskets, and if you're a fisherman, it will be a boat, and if you like cakes,
Oh,
the casket will be a cake. So
that's
they
awesome.
take that idea of a casket into like, no, let's celebrate what the person was, right?
Exactly.
So it's that notion that we still stuck into like, oh, we have to be fearful or like bow to death, and like, no, it's let's celebrate. That's the whole thing, that we have to change that kind of like ugh, feeling into something. Oh, that dude was pretty cool. I want to celebrate his life, right? So I really like people in the weddings nowadays. They're taking more of the like the direction of where they want to take their wedding, instead of like, oh,
Yeah,
we have to do this. Not like they can celebrate the way they want to, right? Because it's celebration of how they want, right?
that's a really good point. Weddings, yeah, have changed a lot. A lot of people rather do a fun wedding. I want a Tim Burton wedding. I want a whatever, like, Batman wedding. Yeah, but that's a wedding, and now it's like, and I guess, and like, oh, now it's death, funeral. That's
Mhm.
still hands off for the most part. But that's, I don't want to like a commercial
And
for a
exactly,
lawyer, but
like, but we
well,
separated, right? That's the thing that we're
it
thinking.
is
Like, we should continue it, like a part of our existence, right? Like death, we shouldn't just push it into this corner of like, but
right.
take it into like the wedding context of something to celebrate and to be a little more festive about it. I know it's a hard feeling, but like, why? Why we also take it that way? And I know, except I've been in the down low because of the same things,
Yeah,
but
exactly.
I also retrieve to the mind of like, why, right?
Well, like I was about to say, I don't want to be a commercial for a lawyer, but I think it would. One thing that would help would be for you to write that in your will, so the friends and the family, they hear, oh, Abraham. Here's what Abraham has asked us to do when he passes away. He likes you guys to dress up in your baseball T-shirts, whatever. You know what I mean? He wants his rock band playing. I mean, whatever. But I think it'd be different when the audience, the people, okay, this is Abraham asked for this.
Mhm.
He does want me to draw on his casket or whatever it is, right? Maybe that'll help a little bit. So I'm gonna have to definitely do that. Whatever it is
Yeah.
I want, I put it in
Have you
writing.
seen the guy who, well, he made a plan if he died, and so he recorded something. So in his wedding, people's already gonna put the casket in the ground, right? And then it sounds, "Hey guys, let me out," and blah blah blah. And like,
Oh, I
dude,
saw that. I
the
saw that.
guy, yeah, the guy created this funny moment for everybody, because I guess he was a jokester, right?
Yeah,
So he
he made a
wanted that,
recording.
and I love the faces of everybody. Nobody took offense on it because they knew him. They knew the kind of person
Right.
and the kind of goodbye that he wanted. He wanted to see them smile, right? So that's where we're going at. Like
Yeah, that
why get stuck into what it should be, right?
the people know. Yeah, Joe would do that. That's so Joe. You,
Yeah.
you know this years ago, an uncle of ours passed away, and then we buried him on Friday, and then the next Friday, another uncle who was in the hospital, he passed away, right? So we had a rosary for both. So for the second uncle, we go to the rosary, and it was the same deacon was doing the service, right? So everybody's very serious, very sad, and then he comes up to stand up front to lead the service. And you know what he said? He goes, very serious, because we got to stop meeting like this. And we all laughed because it was like, yeah, we were just here a week ago, whatever, for the other uncle. He
Mhm.
wasn't being disrespectful, but like that was such good timing. So we need to quit meeting like this. And there was this nervous chuckle, but it was a good release chuckle. So yeah, well, I don't know. We're gonna have these conversations tonight. I like this. It's not the usual like, tell us how the movie came about. This is good. I've done enough of those.
Yeah.
But talking about art and life and death and yeah, culture.
Yeah. This
Again,
conversation.
it goes back to like the expectation of like, what's the story that I want to push? No, I want to hear what Javier is thinking, right? I don't want to
Yeah.
push a narrative into to you, because like that's the whole point of us meeting, to exchange ideas and actually listen to each other, right?
No, absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah. And this is a fascinating conversation because it's like, all of these things are kind of circumstantial, the circumstance of, your nephew's passing. And I remember when that happened and the conversations that we had during that time. And, I really felt for you. And I can really see how, because of the circumstances, it would have made it difficult for his friends, his coworkers to draw on his casket. But it's it is a really kind of beautiful and loving idea, to
Yeah.
ask that. And I think, I'm kind of with you, Javier. I feel like I would want to have somebody do that for me. Um, if it wasn't for the fact that I already know, like I want to be cremated,
Right. Right.
I don't want to be like forgotten in a tomb somewhere when nobody's gonna come see me. But um, like I feel like the this conversation about death and our innate fascination with it really does speak to kind of a really important part of what it means to be Latino, and uh, just culturally speaking, I'm totally with you. Octavio Paz did say it really well, and that like we live hard and we party hard, and then even in death we die hard.
Yeah.
Um, so, like, I really appreciate that. That's kind of where this conversation has gone. And I would, I guess, ask you, now that, I mean, 25 years is a long time. It's a quarter of a century to be publishing your comic, and how is that um, kind of playing into the future of El Muerto and your other titles? Because I know you publish more than just El Muerto.
Yeah. Yeah. Over the years, I've done other comics. I was gonna say, I don't know.
And I guess the question is like, how's now, your 25 years informing the next 25? How do you see that?
Ooh, more wisdom.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so. Yeah. The answer for that is they're definitely simple. It's once you've tasted that little grapefruit off the tree, you weren't sure you could. Like, damn, this is good. I
Mhm.
want more and more and more. So I wanted to. It just the first 25 has fueled me for God willing the next 10, 15, 25. Um, what a lot of people ask me is what what did you not know back then when you started, or you wish you knew, or that
Mhm.
however they phrase it. And I go, well, what I didn't know was like I had ideas like, well, I want to keep making my stories. I want to, make more, yeah, having a good body of work of all the characters, but really El Muerto, like 1,000-page epic. Um, but what I answered is like I had no idea what was coming ahead besides the comic. I didn't plan the Latino Expo back in '98. That was a I just got to get this damn comic done and try to sell it. The black and white photo.
Mhm.
I didn't think I was going to start a teaching career. I started shortly after. It's like, oh, well, I know comics. Maybe I should make some extra money at the local community center. So I started a teaching career. Um, Travel. I didn't know I was going to travel so much. Across the country doing shows, getting paid to do shows, having my work in museums, and bought it for collect. You didn't think all that when you're trying to get your comic done late at night when you're working at Target on the weekends, and hey, I just have to get this first issue out. So you have no idea what's coming ahead. I have this book, might be up in the closet. It's called "Stealing Fire from the Gods." I don't know the author's name. I forgot it, but it's one of these like a screenwriting book, Joseph Campbell type, or whatever screenwriting. That's actual book. He's giving you tips on how to find the right hero archetype. Some of it's kind of flighty and stuff, but at the end of the book, he's got this beautiful thing, which at the time I go, oh, I hope that's true, and it is. He goes, whatever you want to do, whatever story you're doing, if you're a songwriter or a poet or whatever, um, put your story out there because I'm paraphrasing it. Like you have no idea of the treasures that you're going to uncover because of that. And it's not directly related to your screenplay. Doesn't mean you're going to write a screenplay, you're going to win an Oscar. Doesn't mean you make a comic, you're going to win an Eisner. No, all these other things that opened up for me, teaching and lecturing and, stuff like that. The class that I had with you guys, just, you know, a small percentage of the class I've done, but we talk about it today. I tell you exactly what I loved about the class, and I can tell you the interaction with a particular student. Those are all things that you had no idea was going to happen, at least me, when I started my comic. And it doesn't mean everyone's path is going to be the same. You know, some may never get into teaching or whatever, and
Mhm.
that's fine. There's no right or wrong. But yeah, I'm so glad I did that first comic, got off my butt. That's the other thing, right? You don't do something for years because you're lazy, you're not unsure, you know what I mean? Whatever. There's tons of reasons why I have them. But man, once you do the thing that say you want to do. It's great satisfaction you did it, like having that first little comic. Wow, I got a comic. But I had no idea it was going to put me on this journey of all these different fantastic things. So if anyone out there is going to start something creatively, try it, just do it, like really do it, at least get it done. So in 5, 10, 30 years, you're not going like, oh man, I should have wrote that book of poetry. Damn it. I should have done those photographs I wanted to do. And whatever it is you want to do, you really have to try it and put it out in the world, because no one cares about my notebook down in my bottom drawer, of my comic idea. No one cares. Let me, spoiler warning, no one cares about your ideas, your idea for a play, your script for a movie. You care about it, maybe your friend you showed, whatever, but unless it gets put out, right? And then when you put it out, doesn't mean people are gonna like it either. The world doesn't owe you a favor, my friend Rafael Navarro always says. But that's art. There's no guarantees. I know it's hard, and some guy or girl right now may get inspired to put out their comic and it doesn't do good for them, and maybe they get disillusioned and quit. I mean, like, don't blame us for encouraging you. It's not about us. We don't promise you success. All I can tell you is if you put it out, you're going to get a certain relief that you put it out, if that's what you wanted to do. So
I like the way you said, like, every path is gonna be the same.
yeah,
And I always say, like, I love speaking with, like, especially like we're doing this podcast, we interview different artists, right? And I like listen their stories, how they went through, right? But in no means it's a formula. Do not follow every step they took. Like, not everybody is gonna be a Javier, right? And so the point is to listen to those key moments and see how they deal with them. Like, the first time that remember I met you, like, it was at the library, and Luis brought you, and somebody asked you a question oh, you were lucky because somebody got you for the movie or something like that.
right.
And you were like, hold a second, hold a second. That's
I
not how
remember
it
that.
happened. Correct me if I'm wrong. This is the way I remember it. Like, you say, like, no, I went to different, like, expositions and had to put my work out in different places. And yeah, I got somebody to notice me and all that, but it's the adding those chances that
Yes,
made it possible. It's not just one chance. I went too many times and nothing happened. It's adding those times that made it
exactly.
happen, right? And so
Good
those are
point.
the moments that I want people to listen, not just like, oh, Javier did this and this. No, no, like, listen to the key moments and reflect on those. Like, do not quit. Keep on showing up. And that's the key. Not like, oh, I have to go to this specific event and it's gonna happen there.
Yeah,
Oh, the 50th time. No, it's the lesson is do not quit, present yourself as many times as possible, and be passionate about it, right?
that's a funny story you brought up. I remember that when I told you, when I got the movie deal years ago in 2003, someone told me, "Oh, you're so lucky," and then my friend told me, not in front of them, but that's a stupid comment. It wasn't luck. Luck. I go, yeah, you're right. Luck. Here's how luck would work. Luck would be I got a movie deal because I have this comic book, El Muerto. I'm sitting in my house, and the director happens to be driving on the street, and his car breaks down, and he wants to use my house for the phone number to call somebody. And he goes, "Hey, what's that?" "Oh, it's my comic." "Oh, wow!" And then I got a movie deal. Okay, that's luck. Just complete, like, the guy showed up, and what's not going to happen in a million years? No one's going to just walk in your house. But because I would do, I did an interview on NPR at Comic Con, because I went to Comic Con and the guy was looking for Latino creators to talk to, so he talked to me, and then the director heard the interview. So there's the luck. But I put like you said, I made my luck by, hey, I'm going to go to Comic Con. I'm going to do that interview. I could have said no, or, oh, I don't want to talk. I don't like how I sound on the radio. That's all that dumb stuff. So yeah, you're increasing your luck by whatever, going to places, putting more work out, and then you may never get a movie deal or whatever. So don't get disillusioned for that either.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think the moral of the story is just, you know, always show up for yourself, right? Not for
For
anybody else,
yourself,
for
like
yourself.
that.
Yeah. Um, those are definitely some great words of wisdom. I appreciate that you you bring that story up, Javier and Abraham too, because
Yeah, no, that's funny. He remembers that.
yeah, and it's also kind of fortuitous that he says that, because we just actually last night finished teaching a lesson on how to have that sort of artist as a business owner mindset,
Mm,
and to be a business owner, as a creative entrepreneur, you're constantly working and you're constantly showing up for yourself,
yeah,
if you're going to be successful. So um clearly you have shown up for yourself, and you have been successful in how you would define success. And if there was anything that I guess I would ask, is just how do you consistently find that motivation for yourself? What do you do as part of your everyday practice to not feel like you're burning out, or not feel like you're kind of just running in place, and not progressing?
yeah. The hamster on the spin
Mm,
wheel. Yeah, it's kind of like that answer I gave earlier. Like I've tasted that fruit of success. And when I don't mean success like, oh, I'm a millionaire,
mhm,
I got an Oscar or something. But success, like, yeah, what I do resonates with people and they like it, and I do another one, they like it. To me, that's success. So I just, it's like that carrot that's in front of me. It's like I got a stick here taped to my shoulder.
mm,
I got the carrot thing, so it's always attached. So I always want that, go for that carrot. I mean, I just enjoy what I'm doing, and I love the interactions with people.
mhm,
I I do like the responses when I get good responses. And when I get bad responses, okay, I take the bad ones too. But it's going to resonate. I mean, create a character is crazy to me, like, and that people like it. I mean, I like characters. It's like, it's not a real thing. I mean, it's not a real person.
mhm,
Why do I love Spider-Man? Why do I love, whatever characters I like? They're not real, but you like those stories, and particularly you like the certain creator who makes it. So it's that, again, getting back to just art and creating, it's that bond you create with your readers. You know what
mm,
I mean? It's a little community. Like they
yeah.
can't wait for the next one, and it's like, okay, I don't give them what they want. I give them what I want. Like I lectured one time. They teach my first graphic novel, Days of the Dead, at Modesto Junior College.
Mhm,
My Dr. Teresa Ross, she teaches it every semester basically. And one time I went to go visit before COVID, and it was great, right? Because there I am talking to this college crowd, which is the same age as Diego in the book. So like, man, you couldn't ask for a better scenario. And they
mhm,
got the questions, and you know, they have certain things they want. No, he's got to get back with his girlfriend. Everybody's a big on that. And then there's things like they would say, "I hope this happens in the story." And in my head, I'm like, "Oh, that's not going to happen." You're going to get pissed off, but I don't change it because I got to stick to what I'm doing. But and I don't play to the crowd. I don't like, oh, they say they all want this, so I'm going to change my idea and do that. I don't feel that's the best position for a creator.
mhm,
I got my stuff laid out in my head. It's not being stubborn. It's like, you're a creator. You're creating these things. You're not. This is not a community effort like making the comic.
mhm.
The community comes from, I'm the creator, you're the reader, and we interact. That's the community. But no, I'm not doing the comic by committee. Uh-uh. It's there's no
You're there.
democracy.
Your DJ takes no requests.
Yes, thank you. Yeah. No, we're playing the Smiths all damn night, and everybody can leave. Sorry. Um, so yeah, it's wanting to keep creating and telling the stories, getting out there, putting out in front of the world. Just reliving that first moment in '98 when I went up to San Jose
Mm.
to the Alternative Press Expo, my little table, my first books, like the first people to ever watch and see my work. Um, Reliving that moment, I guess.
That's cool. That is really cool. That, I mean, yeah, I guess, sometimes it's something as simple as that, right? Just living off the memory, living off the
Yeah,
feeling.
yeah, making it, yeah, getting that feeling back.
That's great.
Talking about a memory, well, not that far back memory. It's a recent memory. The just expo that just happened that we
Yeah,
saw you. I noticed there was like two people dressed up. Well, actually three people. One was like a type of Batman.
yeah,
Another one
Chicano
was
Batman.
some type, yeah. Then another one was like one of those dancers, like he brought the daughter with this colorful dress. And I think I saw Iron Man. You saw him?
Yeah, that Tony Stark, the guy.
Yeah.
He calls himself
So
Mexican Iron Man on Instagram.
Yes. I have done the Iron Man before, so I get it.
I can see that. Yeah.
So my question to you is like, because I was like, wow, I want this to have more of these people showing up with like the customs of the people's work that are basically on the tables. So my question to you is like, who do you want to be dressed? I mean, who do you want to see the dress as? What
Well,
cosplay do you want to see?
well, you didn't see them when you mentioned these. So there was a guy. He's the husband of one of the artists. He dressed as El Muerto on Sunday.
Yeah,
He
I
had
have
the
seen.
face in the black suit. And then I was doing a panel on Sunday, and I'm in the
I didn't go
panel.
Sunday. Damn it.
Oh no, yeah, that's right. That's right. I'm doing my panel, 25 years of El Muerto, and then like halfway through, the doors open, and my friend Ricardo's like, "Hang on, we got a special multiverse moment." I go, "Wait, why are you interrupting my panel?" And then there's this little 7-year-old kid, 8-year-old kid, dressed as El Muerto, and I
Nice.
saw his dad behind him. I was like, you made him do that. But I was floored. Little kid came up. I had him sit next to me for the rest of the panel. Yeah, he's a big fan. His mom told me on Messenger the next day. I go, hey, thanks for coming, bringing them. That's so great. So yeah, he always, this really floored me. Hope I don't lose it. She goes, he always tells us he wants to be like you. And it's like, wow, that's crazy. So I mean, his dad's an artist. But yeah, that's so. Who do I want to see? I'd like to see more of Muertos show up.
Damn, there you go. Good stuff, people. Dress up for next one.
Yes.
Nice.
The little kid, he came to my table after I sat down, and then he says he's an artist too, and he brought me a sketch. I'm like, he brought me a sketchbook, and he had a lot of Muerto drawings in there, and it's so cute. He's all, oh, this one here, I gave him a mustache because he's older. It's like, oh god, that's about the most adorable thing I've heard in my life because he's older, so he has a mustache. So I had him come behind my table. The mom was all excited. We're filming. I go, here, I'm going to draw a Muerto with pencil and a head, and you ink it. And then it's on my Facebook. You can see the pictures. And you know, I do this. I do that a lot at shows. Not all, whenever it comes up. Hey, you like to draw? Come back here. Because it gives the kid a big jolt. Like, oh, he's behind the table, like a real artist, and he's drawing. But you know what? Honestly, I just always sense it, and you feel it from the parent because they're filming or watching or taking pictures. You can feel that parent is so happy for their child, right? Because every parent wants their kid to fly, and they know this kid likes to draw. They're so happy that I get so much from the parent, just that glow from them. I mean, it's from the kid, of course, but from the parent, they're so happy and they're taking pictures. Oh, I'm sure they talk about it later, right? Oh, remember he helped you draw. So again, I didn't think that was going to happen when I started the first comic. That's what I'm saying. So many things came out of doing, getting off your butt and conquering your fears and putting out your first little crappy book, because all our first work is crappy. Not even being, not knocking my work, but it's just not, it's rough. It wasn't ready, but it had to come out. I had to publish it. So
yeah, like
we're really hammering people out there. Go do your work. Go do what you want to do.
Yeah. I think some people need that. So bring the hammer. Don't worry.
No, they do. I needed it. I got started late. So yeah.
It goes back to what Luis was asking, like what's the next step of Javier, right? What's this new movement? And I think I see it like even before, like, yeah, when we're trying our first steps as art, we're ourselves coming out, right? Like growing into whatever nopal you want to grow into, right?
Right.
And then it's that kind of phase when you turn into basically the person's going to teach, right? You become that next generation of teachers or people who inspire the next generation. And I think that's really powerful. And I love that you saw that in the kids and the parents, like, yeah, I'm also giving to the next generation of people who either it's going to be readers or who's going to be the artists, right?
Yeah,
it takes that responsibility.
Well, I shouldn't say this because it's going to come out very. It's not. I don't say it arrogantly. People call you what they call you. So after 20, people say introduce you, whatever. Like, oh, the legend. I've ever had a legend. I'm like, I didn't start my comic in '98 because I want to be a legend.
Mhm.
And I don't know. I don't say that I am, but I mean, people see that you've been around this and that. It's like, well, they said it. Um, Again, I just bring that up because it's not something I ever. You don't sit. I don't. Maybe it's different with TikTok generation. I know influencers, but you don't sit at home trying to be a legend or an icon. I mean, I don't know. That sounds so shallow. If that's your starting point, you know what I mean? When you get to a certain point, if you've built a certain career, then you have a certain responsibility to, act professionally in public places with the audiences and stuff. Even if you have a crappy day, don't let them have a crappy experience when they meet you. You know what I mean? Give them the autograph, shake their hand, whatever. Then go home and say kick the cat, kick the wall or something.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a tremendous place to be in.
Yeah, I think once people call themselves legends and all that stuff by themselves, it's like it takes away. Unless you're Muhammad Ali or Bruce Lee, just saying.
Yeah, no, exactly. If you kick butt like they do, yes, sir.
Like, okay,
That's
you
true.
can say it. You can
Yeah,
say it.
that's true. There's always an exception to the rule.
Always an exception. But all those YouTubers out there, like I'm an I hate that word influencer that they call them that
Mhm.
because it makes their head bigger. You're an influencer, but anyway, whatever. I don't want to end up on a negative note, hating on people.
Yeah.
I love what I do, and I hope you love what you do out there. And please go do it. Put it out there.
Yeah, I think those are definitely some great words to end on. Um, and there's obviously a long history now with El Muerto, and you mentioned earlier that you had a fundraising campaign right now, correct? For the next issue.
Yeah, it just finished. Just finished. So but this is the book. It's Viva el Muerto, the Aztec Zombie Anthology from '98 through 2023. So it's a 17 different stories, short stories I've done over the years, little side stories like 4 pagers. Um, in fact, my mental health story I did with you guys is in here.
Awesome.
Yeah, because these are all just stories that people haven't seen because they're published by people like you. They're published online. So I thought I'd collect all these random Muerto stories. Yeah, here it is. It's a Who Am I and Why Am I Here? Or Existential Crisis on Infinite Earths. Um, so yeah, that just got crowdfunded. So I'll be shipping those out to people, and I'll have these at my next shows. I know I got a couple of shows coming up in October. At the moment, I'm messed up with the dates. So anyway, but people can follow me on my. I guess you'll put the link down below on my Instagram. That seems to be the popular number one thing most people like nowadays, and my other social media will be there, so people can track me down online and see what I'm up to next.
Yeah, and for our listeners who are listening, do you mind actually saying your Instagram handle for us?
Yes, it's Javier Los Comics. Javier, Javier, LOSCOMEX on Instagram, Javier Los Comics. And once you track me down there, you can go to my profile, my link tree, and it's got my links to my Facebook and Twitter or X, whatever the hell they call it now, and YouTube and all that. But yeah, Javier Los Comics on Instagram, folks.
And if anybody
Yes,
wants
definitely,
to pick up a
guys.
copy of your book, how can they do
Yeah, there's a link. There's a link there on my Instagram profile to my web store. But some of my books are available on Amazon also.
that? Okay.
So if they look up Javier Hernandez El Muerto, I think they should be able to find Days of the Dead, Casa del Diablo, the new graphic novel, and one or two other books I've done. So thanks.
So, guys, yeah, definitely go buy the book. Follow him on Instagram, Tinder, all those cool places. And especially follow him in like whatever the event, because Javier sometimes those events. Show up, say hi, and if you go dress as Del Muerto, I buy you a beer. Promise.
Hey, there we go.
That's coming from Abraham's pocket.
Yeah. Louis
Pick him
ain't
up on
paid for that.
Yeah.
Awesome. Great.
I'll
Well,
give them a button or a sticker at my table. So
there you go. See, a little added bonus. Right on. All right.
Damn.
Well. All right. So yeah, thank you again, Javier, for sharing your words of wisdom with us and your stories. It's always really nice catching up with you, and at least speaking for myself, and I think even for Abraham, we do look forward to working with you again in the future. Hopefully we can find another opportunity to bring you onto our team for another workshop series.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. Thanks. It's great talking to you guys. I mean, I feel like we should be at Shakey's doing this talking, but
yeah.
it's really good. Hey, by the way, I gotta thank you guys as host. Not knocking anyone else I've ever done interviews with, but man, we talked. You guys did not ask the same 5 questions. How'd you get started? How'd you get the movie deal? I mean, you didn't. You talked. This is that type of conversations I hope I have more of. Just these long, winding roads on very broad topics on art and life and death now, I guess. So yeah, I really appreciate the conversation, guys. Thank you so much.
Yeah, likewise. We really appreciate the conversation too. It's not our generally our custom to have like a very formulaic approach, and especially because I mean we know you, so there's a little bit of that added bonus of not having to ask those questions.
Right.
Our curiosities that lie in other things. But for anybody that is watching or listening, if you want to learn a little bit more about Javier, definitely check out his work. And you can also find a couple of workshops that he helped lead on our YouTube channel too. So those are
Oh,
still up. And you can learn from one of the masters that way. So yeah, thanks again, Javier. And we'll for sure be in touch. I really appreciate it. And on behalf of everybody else at DSTL Arts, and all of the knowledge that you've passed on, we really sincerely thank you, man.
thanks, Abraham, and thanks, Luis, and thanks, Distal Arts, as always. Thanks, guys.
All right, y'all. So thank you, audience members. We really appreciate y'all. Make sure you like and subscribe and do all those good things. And we'll hopefully see y'all again soon. Take care, everybody.